This is Jason Banker from LumosConsulting, and today we will be talking about how to build an L3 out within the ACI fabric using Ospf as our routing protocol. So let's go ahead and get started. Go ahead and pull up a Visio of our environment that we'll be dealing with in the lab today. If we start at the top, we have an ACI fabric that contains 2 border leaves. We have 1 bridge domain built with the 103025 subnet. Right, we'll be creating an L3 out to an external router. In this case, it is a CSR in a virtual environment, but meets the needs that we have for today. We're going to be advertising 2.2.2.2 and 4.4.4.4 out of the external router into ACI. The transit subnets we'll be using is 192.168.0.0/29. Before we get into the fabric, let's go ahead and take a look at that virtual appliance. So here's our virtual CSR, has some pretty basic config on it, and we'll run through it. All right, if we go in, I have 2 loopbacks built in the 2 ranges we discussed. I have a gigabit Ethernet for my transit. And if we look at OSPF, I have router ID and a couple network statements to advertise some routers. So very simple, but it will meet our needs for today. So take a hop into the fabric. I have a basic tenant called Routed Lab. In this tenant, we have some very basic constructs. We'll take a look real quick. I have a VRF, prod, all default settings. I have 1 bridge domain built. Take a look at that bridge domain, default settings, nothing else out of the norm here. I have a subnet, 1030.25. It's private to the VRF right now. We have 1 application profile, web tier with an EPG. We'll take a look at that EPG. Right, show we have 1 host that resides in there today. So let me close some of this down and let's get into building this L3 out. So under our network tab, we have an external routed network. Go ahead and open this up. We right click on it. We can see create it outside. As in everything in ACI, the name is extremely important. In this case, I'm going to keep it very simple. L3 out OSPF. We have a name. Check OSPF. Put it in area 0 as the Visio showed. We're going to make this a regular area. Right? I do need a VRF, very important. You need 1 L. Right? I need a external routed domain. Right? I have one already created, but we will dive in. Right? So if I dive in, we have an attachable entity profile. We also have a VLAN pool assigned to it. I'll open up that VLAN pool. In today's lab, we'll be using VLAN 1200, which is associated with this domain. So just wanted to show you how everything is attached, how the external routed domain attaches to an AEP VLAN pool, just like everything else in ACI, but you do need an external routed domain. Now, the next step is to go ahead and put our nodes who's going to take part in this adjacency, typically our border leafs. L3 out Ospf nodes. We have our nodes. In my case, it's leaf 103. I'm going to give it a simple loopback and router ID. OK. I'm going to do the same for 104. Now, it is important to know that every L3 out in a VRF needs a different router ID, just so we don't get any route exchanges taking place with the same router ID, right? So L3 out per VRF, new loopback / router ID. All right, so we have this created. We have nodes 101, 103, and 104 with router IDs. Now we want to create our OSPF interfaces, how we're going to connect to the outside device. Open up OSPF interfaces, L3 out OSPF interfaces, right? And on this page, we can do some NetFlow, we can do some monitoring. We are not going to do that in this lab, so I'm going to hit next. Here is where we would go ahead and set up some OSPF authentication, some BFD profiles. What we will do here is set up a Ospf policy. So in this instance, we're going to set up a policy called MTU ignore. Right? I'm going to give it a little another name just in case if I have another one. Since I'm going to a virtual environment, we will turn this to broadcast, and I am going to check this MTU ignore. I typically do this within my L3 outs. I still have to do something on the external device for MTU, but I just want to know that we are ignoring MTU when configuring within the fabric. So I'm going to submit that. We do have our MTU ignore policy. Right now we're going to get into building the interfaces. So I do have three options. I have routed interface, right, typical /31/30. I have an SVI or a routed sub. Since I'm going to my virtual environment, I have to go through some FIs. I am going to be doing SVIs. So what we want to do, I'm going to select virtual port channel of how my FI is configured. I'm going to be using encapsulation 1200. Right. I'm going to go ahead and put the transit IPs. Right. I got to do side A and side B. Right. And one thing I do want to do is I want to match the interface level of the router on the external router. So I've got 1500. Right. I have to do the same thing for FIB. Put the same settings, same IPs. And we're going to match MTU. Okay, so now that's done. We are finished with our interface profiles and our node profiles. And hit OK. The next step here is our external EPG. So just like within anything else in ACI, we have an EPG that we can do some controls with contracts, provide, consume. We can do some route controls here. In this instance, we're going to go ahead and create a L3 Out Epg. We're going to keep it very basic. I'm going to go ahead and put a subnet in here. And what I'm doing is I'm not putting a default route. I am putting a catch-all. So we're catching all routes in and out of the fabric. I'm allowing us to exchange routes within the same area. In a following video, I will be explaining these route control checkboxes a little deeper, but in today's instance, this should do. All right, so we're going to go ahead and hit OK. We have our L3 out, and we're going to finish. So now we want to go in and see if we have an adjacency. So within the fabric, I'll go to my layer 3 out. I will go into my configured nodes. Right, I should have my 103 and 104. We can verify each one. Here, I do have an adjacency with my router 2222. Right, I can take a look at some routes. I have the routes coming from the router. We'll verify 104. See if we show the same results. We do. And I have some routes. Now, let's get back into that CSR. Get out of it. We'll get back in. So if we go ahead and take a look at show IP OSPF neighbor, we should have our neighbors. We do. I'll widen the screen a little more. I do show IP route. As you can notice, we don't see any OSPF routes other than the loopbacks. And why this is there's still some extra things we need to do within ACI. So if you remember, we had our bridge domain. We go and take a look at our bridge domain. We had our subnet assigned. We need to specifically allow this to be advertised externally. So we have to change from private to VRF and check advertise externally. We're going to submit that. Right, and there's one more step within the high-level bridge domain. We need to apply the L3 out we want to advertise that subnet out of. So in this instance, it's going to be the one we just built. Let's go ahead and update that. Right, so this piece should be done. We go into our CSR. We look at the routes. I do have that 103025. So now we have full exchange going on between the L3 out and the CSR. So now what we want to do is go ahead and jump into our web box and see if we can ping something on the router. Let me go ahead and pull that up. Open the console. So we're just going to simply try to ping 2.2.2.2. And we cannot. And this is actually correct, and I'm going to show you why. So we cannot ping it out. We go into the ACI fabric. Right. Again, within this L3 out, we have contracts, right? Our VRF is enforced, so we have to do some route control. Excuse me, not route control, but contract control between our L3 out EPG and anything internal. So in this instance, we will want to go into our web tier where our web box lives. Right, and we're going to go ahead and do a contract. Right, and we're going to just provide. So since we're going to be doing Icmp, right, we just need to do a provide and consume somewhere, and it's going to take place both ways. So I'm going to add a simple Icmp contract, right, within the web tier. I'm going to go out into my L3Out Epg. I'm going to have to do the same, and I'm just going to consume it here. Consume that same contract. We'll hit update. All right, now let's go see if we get a different result. Get back into our web box, and we want to ping. Now we can ping 2.2.2.2. So the thing to remember here is that if you are enforcing at the VRF, you do need a network EPG, and you will need to provide consume contracts that allow users into the ACI environment to consume certain ports. That's all for today. Hope you learned something. See you next time.